Welcome back to the BreakThrough podcast. My name is Omar Mohammed, helping you improve and progress in business and in life. As you know, the BreakThrough podcast is all about discovering new pathways, and it's brought to you by the Minority Business Development Agency out of Washington, D.C., Morgan State University, and EDAC. So today we have, as always, a special guest. But before we do that, I always want to share with you that we are on Facebook and Instagram at Ride Small Biz. And we have an opportunity to welcome you. If you want to be a guest on Briefcase, the Breakthrough Podcast, please join us. You can email me at omar@edacmorgan.com. Today we have a special guest. His name is Dr. Paul Archibald, and he's going to talk about research, research and, that we've done in the past and what we should be thinking about as we begin to work with those individuals who we're coming in contact with. And my co-host right there is Levon Dungy the fourth. So Levon, can we hear you now? We still can. All right, we'll work with you, Paul. So if you can start talking about who you are and the research that we've done in the past, I'm gonna drop off for just a minute, and I'll be right back.
So, I am Paul Archibald, the CEO of Archibald Optimal Health Services. And what we do is we provide really focus around wellness, education, advocacy, and research. Really focus our population focus of people who are exposed to chronic stresses and trauma. So you could actually see why we would be interested in working with RIDE, because a lot of our persons who engage the RIDE ventures are people who have been exposed to chronic stresses and trauma. And so I am a public health social worker by trade. And so the work that I do is really focused around behavioral health. And so we have been working with RIDE in terms of looking at basically, we're looking at how the program itself is impacting those persons who have been exposed to criminal justice system. And really what we look at is when we're talking about why even look at data, well, the data helps us to understand the population that we're serving. And so we kind of look at our population, their makeup. We look at how many males we have, how many females we have, what is the race of the participants that we have. We look at what are the levels of charges that people have. So it gives us an idea of the types of people that we're serving. And this becomes important. But then we start to look at have there been any changes in their view of entrepreneurship, in looking at it from the beginning. We ask questions in terms of why were they interested in the program? How did they hear about the program? Then we get information about the benefits of the program in their lives. And so you can begin to see we utilize that data not just to just pull information from people, but we're using that information to really better the program, to enhance the program. We're allowing the participants to help us to create and recreate the program, looking at whether or not there have been any barriers or any situations that we need to address to make the program better. So when you look at why we'd even do that, if you think about it, data itself is used in the criminal justice system anyway, right? People use that data to actually to decide the level of justice they're going to use. And so people may not know, but the data drives sentencing. It also drives whether or not people are engaging in recidivism, returning back. And so since we know that data is already being utilized by the criminal justice system, we are now putting data in the hands of participants so they can now drive the narrative, right? So this becomes important for us to understand because data helps us to look at how do we begin to craft a really person-centered program. So it's not just where you're evaluating the program, but you're evaluating the systems that actually help to support the program. Because the point of what specifically RIDE that we've been working with really wants to do is to get the program to really tailor fit an individual person. So it's really person centered. Although yes, we're bringing in groups of people, the data helps us to see, okay, how do we begin to just use my name? How do we help Paul? Right? Although yes, I want to help 25 people in this cohort, what specifically does Paul need? And so the data, initial data, right? Just some what we call demographics, something as simple of an age group, you know, how much technology have you used before? People don't understand that's data collection. When I'm asking you a question about you and you're sharing that back, that's data collection. I know when we start thinking about data, we start thinking about all big statistics and all that's. I want you to just think simplified, right? Me just asking you a question about you so that I can make the program more beneficial for you is data collection. And that's what we really are about, because if we're going to make this person centered, we need to understand individually how we can tailor it to you, right? And then to a person. And then at the same time, we look at it collectively. What is the percentage of people who had a barrier to technology? What's the percentage of people who benefited from the program? What's the percentage of the people who heard about the program from another person who participated in the program? All that information becomes vital to us looking at how the program is being utilized, right? But data also is also helping us. We utilize that data and that information because it helps us to see some of the systemic issues that are showing up. If we have 90% of the Black males who are coming into the program who have had charges, felony charges, or they've been exposed to the criminal justice system for 15 to 17 years, what does that mean, right? You kind of look at what is that data saying? So that kind of helps us. It also helps to underpin people's exposure to the criminal justice system. And then we start to look at, okay, most of them are coming from 21217. Most of it's coming from 21213. So we begin to look at, okay, what is happening in this area? Is this a higher percentage of an incarcerated community? So that's how data can also help us, right? And so I really believe that as you begin, I know even when I began this journey of data collection, I looked at one of the things that I like to always share is that people didn't even know sometimes because we don't always teach it, but the civil rights movement was driven by data. There's a whole article that's written by Martin Luther King where he talks about the importance of data. He literally put out a call to social scientists to help him to collect some data to help him to understand what was happening with the civil rights movement. Because what he found, and when they collected some of that data, the research question was, okay, we're doing all of this nonviolent stuff in the South. How is that driving what's happening in the North? And so by them collecting some of that data, they were able to find some of that information out. And so advocacy, data collection is really a really major part of advocacy. I think people sometimes forget that. And that's really my focus is utilizing data for advocacy for people who are exposed to criminal justice systems. It's really about the advocacy because we need to look at what is happening. And one of the big things that we've done where we had, so there's what we call quantitative data, which is the numbers, right? But the juicy and the biggest part that I love is the qualitative stuff, right? Which is the narrative that comes out of the mouth of people. So when you interview people, you have these interviews, and we've had a number of interviews with people who have engaged the program, and they just tell their story, right? Tell what they've had, and they just kind of pull those themes out. This is what we're calling, what we really talk about, some of the work that we do is community-based participatory action research. That's a lot of word, right? CBP is what we call it, right? And so what that means is the people that you're actually studying, because a lot of times when people enter into a study, they have them a survey, you ask them a question, you collect the data, you analyze it, and you don't ever talk to the people, right? You just publish it in the journal and go on your way. CBPAW is you actually talk to the participants from the beginning, like we did in RIDE. So they kind of help you to kind of define the type of questions you're going to ask. So you start with these small focus that we've had to kind of find out, okay, what do we really want to know? What is the question that we really want to ask, right? What are some of the things we really want to get to? And it's not just about me, it's about them, right? What do y'all want to know? What do you want to know? So that's what CBPAW is really about. So why do we even need this data? What's the purpose, right? We're just doing it just to be doing it.
Ask you a question, Paul.
Sure.
Are your focus groups and these questions or this data, is it to steer a result or is it to figure out what the actual results are?
Yeah.
Or define benchmarks, goals, and outcomes for the program as you create these groups to see if you hit benchmarks and goals?
It's all of those, right? So because there's evaluation research, because you're calling all of them out. You're calling evaluation research where we're actually evaluating the program afterwards, right? So that's that one part. But then there's the research where we're asking questions before we even began to get the program started. So we did focus groups to even find out what was needed, right? So that's the first part. Then we could then begin to collect the data once people are in it, right? Then we do the evaluation to see whether or not we reach those benchmarks that we set in the beginning of the focus groups.
Right.
Did that make sense?
Yeah, because in my experience, it appears that a lot of the funding sort of attached to this data.
Oh, definitely.
Like, how many am I servicing? What's my target market? What are the goals? What are the outcomes? What are the benchmarks? And are we using a tool that's sustainable throughout, like you said, the beginning, the middle, and the end?
That's correct.
Now, my other question is, do you also collect the data that shows where your client base is today?
See, that's the next phase, right? So,
Okay.
exactly. So the goal is what we call longitudinal data collection, which is we then follow up with the people who participate in the program. So what we do is we let them know when they started in the beginning that we will be tracking them, right? So it shouldn't be a surprise to people, right? You shouldn't be knocking on somebody's door. You was in RIDE, wasn't you? Right? I want to talk to you. They should know coming in that the goal is that we're going to be doing some follow-ups with you throughout the process. In fact, we actually did some of that. I can't remember. Was it last year? Oh, I can't remember. So we brought some people back who had completed the program, who were actually doing some things. They did some of the focus groups, but it was narrative. We did some videos asking them to just talk about where they were in the beginning and where they are now. So we try not to do as much as all of this quantitative stuff because a lot of our people don't really like to engage it that way, where they're just sitting there and filling out all these surveys, but they'd love to talk. They even podcasts, all these podcasts,
Absolutely.
podcast is data collection, right? Yeah, see, yeah. Podcast is data collection. When people are talking, sharing the stories about what they've engaged, and a lot of them that come on the podcast have been in the program. So then you go back and you look at the podcast, you got data collection. Facebook is data collection. When they advertise, when they put up, when they have a website, all that is data collection about the work that we've done. So yes.
Absolutely. One of the things too, Dr. Paul Archibald is, recidivism. I know, you gave me this formula, that you gave me a formula a couple of years ago. One of the things that, as we move forward, that's one of the things that we need to really capture as well. And I think, move on, you talked about the funding piece. Yeah, in order for us to continue to do this work, we're going to need some funding because we have to pay people to assist us to do this. So capturing what recidivism, that number, what it costs to house a person. And
That's correct.
just looking at the number of people who we've worked with, where it impacted, who are not no longer, well, I guess that's what recidivism is.
Yeah, no, but not just that. The percentage who now are working
Mm,
because they've started a business, right? Because that adds to the economy,
yeah,
right? And so we're talking about people sometimes who are counted out of the workforce
yes,
because of their connection, right, to the criminal justice system, to show that this is the percentage of people that we've been able to move through, to come out, to move through, and to now adding to the economy. Because some of them, if I remember, it was two. Not only did they start a business for them, they are hiring people. So they're not only helping themselves, they're also then now helping the economy by hiring and giving jobs, opening up jobs for other people.
Omar, Paul, one of the things I've found extremely interesting about data, when it comes to funding, is as if they believe that we don't cast the net large enough. So we'll cast the net in the 21217 and the 21215, but we're only capturing the participants that are willing to participate. And I've heard that so much that if you have, let's say, an arrest or an incarceration or release a day inside of those communities, how can we, and I'm talking like a funner now, how can we monitor that one person that you may have missed that got through the cracks? Now, they forget of all the work that you're doing to capture the ones that you can, because this is almost like a social science that you have to agree to disagree, you have to encourage, you have to support just to get the person in the door. So that's a huge hurdle that you've overcome. So my hat goes off to you, Paul, for the information and the stuff that you collect, because I know how much work it takes to
Oh
start
my God. Yeah, and the other thing, because you said something that kind of triggered. So one of the things that the data is definitely showing, what you just pointed out, is that we can no longer just offer people offerings, right? We have ride, we have this, without what is showing why we're not capturing and getting more is because they need more support than just trade program and just a training. You have to have training plus, right? So I remember the collection of the data that asks people the areas of need.
yeah, yeah.
And the areas of need was so intense. So now we're asking people to come and engage into a program, and I have all this need. See, think about that, right? So it's showing that if we're going to fund the program correctly, we have to fund it for the tasks that they're going to engage, plus the needs that we need to address.
Absolutely. And, you know, we're part of a number of organizations where, you know, they provide that need. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we do the entrepreneurship, the workforce development. And if individuals need housing, food, medical, expungement, you know, we partner with those organizations, and they can, we can assist each other, you know, not that they're just assisting us or we're assisting them, we're assisting each other with that. And you're absolutely right, Paul. You know, one of the things that, you know, individuals, you know, as they're coming out, you know, right away, they're not looking for entrepreneurship. I mean, they're looking for, you know, stuff to
A
survive,
place to live, right? Can I?
place to live. So we partner with a number of organizations around, not just here in Maryland, I mean, in Baltimore, but across the state with that.
Yeah. So when he said that, that's sometimes what they have to consider, right? Is they're looking at, you can't just look at the number alone. You got to look at what is it saying. That's why that numbers, those data becomes important, because it's not just looking at that's why in the beginning, right, when you got to really, what is the purpose of the data collection, right? We're not just collecting just to be collecting. There is a purpose, right? Sometimes it's about informing. Sometimes it's just illustrating a need. This is the need. Sometimes it's about, I need to just inform people. Sometimes it's, we're not really sure about something and we just need to find out, right? That's we don't know until we go in and do it. Stop assuming things. And then when you ask, you're like, oh, we was totally off, right? You find most of the times you find you're totally off because you did not engage the people that you're intending to service. And I think that's what we want to make sure that doesn't happen, that the way that we're servicing people is the way that they want to be serviced. And not the way we're telling them how to be serviced, right? And so that becomes important. And so we're also allowing ourselves to, because there's a lot of data sets that we can go to, right? But they don't always represent us, right? So I can find a data set about people who's been exposed and run those analysis, and I can get some stuff, but they're not specific to Baltimore, right? It's a national data set. So we can utilize this information to kind of create our own kind of data set, and then working like you just said, Omar, working with all these other agencies to say, okay, this is what we found. What are you finding? Absolutely. And then kind of putting a real comprehensive package together for people.
Absolutely. So we meet with this organization every month. Well, we're part of it. And it's about 30 something organizations that are working with formerly incarcerated individuals or justice involved individuals, called Maryland Statewide Alliance for Returning Citizens. So, I like that, and one of the things I could say to them, Paul, I didn't think about that. We're collecting data and they're collecting data. What if we all decide to let's report, or let's share, not report, but
let's just talk.
Let's share so that we can really benefit the individuals that are in need of our respective services. So yeah, I need to have that conversation with them.
Because I know when I was the director at Sandtown Winchester CDC, one of the things that they always said was, let's take this three-prong approach, or the three-legged stool: employment, education, and housing. Yeah. Now, we realized that one organization couldn't do it all. Yeah. One of the fragmented pieces was we didn't share data.
Yep.
People were to us for housing, only to find out that they didn't have the income for the housing. So what did we do? We referred them to employment. They got to employment, figured out that they didn't have a skill. Then they referred them to a skill-based component. So it's fragmented because, like you both are saying, there needs to be a one-stop sort of collective where all the data is shared, and it's not representative. Now, I don't think, let me say this, and I hope I don't get in trouble for this. I don't think the municipality represents the need well enough to hear what its constituents need. So that data is collected based on that. Not South Baltimore need housing, not West Baltimore need a train station, not North Baltimore schools. That's not the issue. It's how do you put all of that to make us a one Baltimore? And I think that's the fragment.
Yeah, that's you taking me into our post-traumatic slave syndrome, right? Where they've kept us separated for so long that our traumatization of separation, right? Just this constant fight. But I think we can push back on it. And I think a lot of agencies have been attempting to do that. Just with Omar saying, we're making attempts. We just need to then step it up now, right? So we're coming together and meeting and sharing, but now let's get real specific about what we're targeting.
All right, so let me ask the question, Paul. Since we have these 1,200 organizations throughout the state of Maryland that are all fighting for the same funding to do their studies and to do their service, how can we reduce that number so that it's 3 to 5 and the pot of money can spread so that we can effectively do the work? That's always been an argument.
Yeah. And so it's having that discussion.
But then there's 20 other organizations that are using some of the funding that he can use to cast a larger net. Does that make any sense?
It makes a lot of sense. So there's a number of ways. So as organizations are coming, we're having that same issue on the behavioral health side, right? So it's across the board. But I think it's having in those meeting places, like Omar is saying, that's where those discussions need to begin, to start talking about that, because there's also a way to collectively, even as you're working on reducing the number, because just trying to get this city funding and state funding, there's actually federal funding that collectively, let's say 1,200 agencies, I just use that number since that's the number you use, 1,200 agencies writing for one grant for 500 million together, but clearly defining what each are going to do, is a masterful way to do stuff. The struggle is we have to first trust each other.
Trust each other. That's hell too. So let's bring this to a close.
Mm-hmm.
And is there anything else you want to cover? Do you have a website you want to share with people?
Well, actually, not yet, because this is such a protective population.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So we don't really, share out.
Y'all can email me if y'all trying to reach Dr.
Yes.
At edacmortgage.com. Any final thoughts?
Well, I always just like to because when we hear the word data, because of how we were treated as a people, we start thinking about how people get really, really uncomfortable. I don't want to be in no study, that kind. Just helping us to understand that we are engaging in studies. All the data and analytics is where it is right now. Every time you're on social media, somebody's collecting data on you. Just want to let you know. So why not be in charge of it, right? Why not be a real participant, right? Why not be the one who's driving the data rather than somebody just taking it from you? So that's why I want people to think how important data can be and how it can be used. It's really one of the greatest advocacy tools that we have not been utilizing as well, because people are using it to stop you from getting resources.
Absolutely.
So now we need to use it to get resources.
Right. Well, Dr. Paul Archibald, man, I really appreciate you coming on. And, you'll hear much more from Dr. Paul Archibald as it relates to the work that we're doing and collecting this data and making sure we're telling a story with it as well. So before we go out, I need to find my screen. Hopefully, let's see. No, that's my calendar. So, one of the things that, we're doing, we have a number of resources, and you can just visit us at edacmorgan.com. You'll see the number of activities that we have for the RIDE program, but you also see activities that we have just across the board to assist entrepreneurs. Again, we really appreciate you. Levon, any final thoughts before we go out?
And EDAC is EDAC.
There you go, edacmorgan.com, all one word. Sir.
Yeah, I think Paul did a fantastic job, especially in this information. Take control of the information that you want to share, instead of allowing others to share what they want.
That's it.
So thank you, Paul. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Definitely.
All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. And until next time, continue discovering new pathways. Again, I'm Omar Muhammad, helping you improve and progress in business and life. And we have Levon Dungy the fourth down there. We'll see you next time. Peace.